Good morning and welcome to What Really Matters. I'm Gary Sutton and I'm alongside Charlie Giroux here today, who is running for governor for the Republican nomination. And we're in the final days before you get a chance to cast your vote. And we thought it might be good this morning, instead of putting a word out there, well, the word might be finale, because we're going to wrap up all the things that Charlie has been running for and talking for around the state of Pennsylvania with people like you. And we're hoping now, as you give serious consideration in the final days, that you seriously consider some of the issues we're going to talk about here this morning. Because in case you missed it, we'll wrap them all up for you today in this finale before May 17th. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Gary, great to be with you.
It's been a long run here, across and back over the state of Pennsylvania. Every county you've been in, I would dare say just about every city you've been in. What have you learned about this state over that period of time, Charlie?
As McCartney once said, a long and winding road leads to this door. It's been great. It really has. I love Pennsylvania, as you know. It's in my DNA to love this state. And I love its people, and to be out with them every single day for a year now has been really wonderful. And as you travel across Pennsylvania and go to these little towns and little villages in rural Pennsylvania in particular, which is where I really like to be, it's amazing to just see people and what concerns them, what really matters to them, what they're talking about at their breakfast tables or at dinner or whatever, and to listen to what they have to say. And it's been a fabulous experience. So I'm looking forward to Election Day. I think our campaign has picked up incredible momentum over the course of the past couple of weeks, because people now are looking at the candidates up close and personal, Gary. And they're saying, who is fundamentally prepared to be governor? Who would be the best governor? Instead of all this other stuff that, they've tried to sort out, they're now saying, who would be the best governor? And they're also looking at who can take on Josh Shapiro in the fall election and beat him. I mean, we've had folks that ducked out of debates as a matter of habit. I mean, they habitually miss debates. Well, how the heck are you going to take on Josh Shapiro if you can't debate the other Republicans?
You've not been one in any of your advertising that's torn down other people in the Republican Party, which is, I think, admirable, and I think that's something a lot of people appreciate. But by the same token, you've talked about the issues that are really important to you. I think one of the things right now with 9 candidates running this year, it's been very difficult to say sometimes, okay, what differentiates you from the other candidates? Let's take some time this morning to talk about what differentiates Charlie Giroux from the other candidates that are out there. Not the other candidates are bad, they're all trying to serve, and we laud people for wanting to serve. What makes you different and the one that is electable right now?
Gary, it's fascinating that you predicated your question with, Charlie, here's how you're running your campaign, and here's how a lot of others are. I mean, the fact that you've got Republicans out there trashing each other on a daily basis bothers me. I worked for Ronald Reagan, the creator of the 11th commandment that said, thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican. So right there is something that distinguishes me from a lot of the other Republican candidates, that I'm not out there trashing other people, but rather am talking about my vision for Pennsylvania's future and my experience. And I think ultimately what distinguishes me from the other candidates is my record. Mm-hmm. I talk constantly in the campaign about what my dad used to tell me, which is, before you tell me what you're going to do, Charlie, show me what you've done. So I like to show people what I've done. From my service with Ronald Reagan to my current service as vice chairman of CPAC, I've been a solid, sensible conservative for many, many years. I've been involved in more public policy fights than I care to imagine, carrying the torch for individual liberty and personal freedom. And I can show folks where we've done that, where we've had success, where we've won for the good guys, etc. And it's very, very easy to come out and make chest-thumping speeches. But when you boil the fat away from the bone, what have you done? And that's where I'm able to point to and say, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
As governor, we want to have someone who's going to make Pennsylvania a desirable place to be again. Let's start with education. It's one of the things, it's the biggest product that we have in our state, in our country, I would dare say, to produce future citizens who are going to want to stay here in the state and make contributions. What does Charlie Giroux do as governor to get those people to stay here?
Well, first of all, Gary, I recognize every day that every child of Pennsylvania has as their birthright a constitutional right to a thorough and efficient education. And sadly, our schools haven't been providing every kid with that kind of education. So the first thing I want to do is to make sure that that's available to every child. And you do that through school choice, which again, I've worked for many years and have a record of success in working for many years, and will continue to do that as governor. But I think we've also got to do some things inside our schools as they currently exist. One of which is moving away from the indoctrination that's going on of our kids through the critical race theory and the 1619 movement and, boys playing girls sports, etc. But if you're going to get rid of all that crud, what are you going to replace it with? So I've said we need to get back to teaching basics, not just math and science and reading and writing and arithmetic, but how about civics? Something I think you taught at one point.
I did.
Good old-fashioned civics. And, the one proposal that I've made is that every graduating senior from a Pennsylvania high school be required to pass a basic citizenship test, which would evidence that they had read the Constitution, know a little bit about the rule of law, have a clear, maybe not even clear, but at least a basic understanding of our rich history and the traditions which have made us the greatest nation in the history of the world.
And the mistakes that we've made along the way and have learned and profited by as well.
We're not perfect.
It's all part of the whole deal. I know I taught history for a long time, and that was part of it. Tell the truth, and that's what you try to do in this. The economy. It's the tabletop issue that's hitting everybody right now. Inflation's knocking us out. We got people who say, we're going to go to a green culture, and yet at the same time, we're looking at it, and it's just killing us as far as our gas prices. We see them every day going up. You've been a guy who's been around this energy thing for a long time. You know a lot about it. You've talked to a lot of people about it. You've had a lot of policy debates about it. Talk about what you need to do right now as governor to get us back to some kind of semblance of order here with energy.
Well, Gary, I'm a pro-Pennsylvania energy guy. I'll be a pro-Pennsylvania energy person. It's not just natural gas, which is where I've done most of my work over the course of the past 15 or 20 years. It's coal. It's still coal. It's nuclear. It's still nuclear. It's solar. It's going to be that increasingly.
Right.
It's wind. It's all the products that we can get to provide more jobs, lower costs for consumers, and ultimately protection of our national security, because this nonsense, this craziness of buying our energy from people that hate us is just beyond my understanding.
When you look at the other issues that are really on your mind right now, as you go around the state of Pennsylvania, you talked about all the various peoples that you meet in the towns and cities, and we all have diverse backgrounds and diversity in so many different ways, and yet we have a union called Pennsylvania. What are the common strands that you're hearing people talk about daily?
Well, there's no question that the economy is at the top right now, because people are really having a hard time making ends meet. And it's going to be the job of the next governor to help them on a daily basis to do better for their families and to keep more of what they earn and allow them to, every citizen, to make for themselves the judgments about how their hard-earned dollars are spent. So the economy and, skyrocketing gas prices, incredible gas prices at the grocery store, if you can even get what you're looking for, it's hurting people. And we've got to get those things under control to the greatest extent that a single state can do that. Because a lot of this, as you know, is the Biden economy hitting all of us in the face. But the other things that come up on a regular basis are education. Everybody's concerned about not only their kids, but our kids and the future of Pennsylvania and keeping our brightest and best here rather than having to move to Arizona or Texas or Florida or South Carolina. And the third issue, Gary, that comes up with regularity is election integrity. People really want to know that we can trust the count. And they do believe, as I do, that if we can't, there are no winners. And the thing that I've been talking about, which really rings a bell with a lot of folks, is that every vote that's fraudulently cast, because we went, is it massive or is it widespread? Every vote that's fraudulently cast or fraudulently counted cancels out the vote of a law-abiding citizen, and that simply cannot be tolerated.
You kind of hit at the edge of it, but everywhere you go in Pennsylvania right now, and I read an awful lot about what people in Pennsylvania are saying and where the candidates are going, and they'll say, we don't trust our institutions. We don't have much trust in anything. And I'm sure you've heard that out in the campaign trail. How does a governor, Charlie Giroux, get people to start to trust again? What I know you can't do it all yourself, but what role do you play in leading that?
I think the governor plays a big role, Gary, and restoring faith in our institutions and in our government, restoring people's trust, starts with telling them the truth, even when it's not easy to hear. I mean, just looking people in the eye and telling them the truth has tremendous benefit to all of society, to our Commonwealth in every aspect. And so telling people the truth, listening to them, dealing with them, having real conversations with them, I think will help to slowly restore that faith and trust. I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
No,
I wish it
agree with
would.
you.
I wish there was a magic wand that could allow us to have people have faith in our government again. It's going to take some time.
Do you know what we don't want to see, though, I believe? We don't want to see a governor who, when we have something like COVID come up, cloisters himself somewhere in a room with his so-called experts and forgets about the real experts out there who happen to be the governing body called the Pennsylvania people.
We the people.
Yeah, so how do you go about showing people that you trust them again and you haven't, kind of cocooned yourself into a room here with the so-called experts in the bunker mentality?
Well, first of all, you don't cocoon yourself in a room.
Thank you very much.
That ought to be the easy part. But the more difficult part in terms of allowing people to see that they really have a voice is listening. Our whole campaign theme is from the people, for the people. Well, if we're from the people, you've got to be listening to them on a regular basis. You have to be working with them. You have to be, talking with them on a regular basis. You cannot be cocooned in some bunker or in your basement or anywhere else. You've got to be out in the public. When was the last time anybody saw Tom Wolf?
Yeah, you just don't. And the idea of listening to people, collaborating with people, respecting people, I think that's the thing that's missing right now is a lot of people don't feel the respect that a governor should have for those people. And we saw the insanity that went on during the COVID as a result of that.
We did. And I don't know how else to put it any better. I could go on and on and on, Gary, but the fact of the matter is that when you don't listen to people, when you don't collaborate with others, as Tom Wolf didn't do with the legislature, he wasn't even willing to talk to the elected representatives of the people. We all suffer for it.
We're in the final days before people are going to go to the polls to vote. You have, as I said in the beginning, traversed this state up and down. In fact, you did that before this whole campaign started.
So people brag about going to all 67 counties. I'd been to all 67 many, many times before this campaign even began.
And we've talked a number of times about your love of Pennsylvania and where you've come from. You're a guy that didn't start in this country. You started in Brazil. Talk about life. You had a life that was given to you by your mother, passed on to your parents. Talk a little bit about that at the end there, and where it's taking you today in terms of that love for Pennsylvania here in the closing days.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, Gary, because I'm incredibly blessed to be here in Pennsylvania and to be a Pennsylvanian, but I didn't start here. And that was just never a story I told that much. But it's kind of become the centerpiece of this campaign in many respects because it shows the opportunity that we have here in Pennsylvania and in America. And my campaign has really become focused around opportunities and creating more opportunities for every Pennsylvanian, and then allowing the freedoms, the individual liberties, and the personal freedoms that are necessary to pursue those opportunities to really, really kick into high gear. As much as they've been pushed down by Tom Wolf, I want to remove those barriers, take the lid off, and let things explode in a positive way for our economy, for our citizens, for our families, so that we really have a thriving, healthy, growing economy, so that we have a thriving, healthy, growing society, and so that we're all doing better off for it. And, as we come to the close of this campaign, people are really looking now, among all these 9 candidates, at who can govern, who can beat Josh Shapiro, and who's willing to stand up for them. And that's why our campaign right now is on fire. So I hope that folks will be talking to their friends, talking to their neighbors, doing their little bit in their little piece of Pennsylvania to take our message to every one of the citizens. We haven't had the millions and millions of dollars that other candidates have had. I still have 2 kids in college, Gary, so I'm a poor man. I'm not able to write $1 million checks to myself. But I think there's also, with so many people that I've talked to, a gut level understanding that we don't simply want the leaders of Pennsylvania to be the big folks with the biggest checkbooks. That's what we got with Tom Wolf.
Well, and finally, I think the idea, too, is people want to be happy again. I think people want a positive outlook. They don't want to be in a negative kind of thing or coming out of a hole of COVID. We're coming out of a time we're told what we have to do and being pushed around. And a lot of people are saying, I want a conversation with somebody who's got a positive outlook. You've been called the happy warrior for a long time, and particularly during this campaign. You're a guy that projects happiness. You're a guy that projects listening. You're a guy that says, I can work across the aisle with people. You're a guy that doesn't say, I'm just going to go to my experts. The experts are the people of Pennsylvania, and I'm willing to converse with you, as you've been doing these last 20-some weeks with me. And you welcome people to a conversation by giving them your phone number at 717-877-8194, which I have memorized now.
I was going to say, at this point, you have
I've got it down. But the point is, you've invited people to the conversation. And I think that's what they want again, to be invited back to the conversation and not told, sit on the sidelines and we'll do what we're doing. We'll get to you in 4 years. We want your vote again. That's something you've not done. I think that differentiates you big time. And my hat's off to you for running that kind of campaign. I think it's important.
Thanks, Gary. And I am the happy warrior. I do it with a smile on my face. I can break lances with the liberal left and come out of it smiling. And, folks have been really, really great about calling me, using that phone number and calling me. And people have asked, well, don't you get a lot of crank calls? Honest to God, I haven't gotten any.
Yeah.
People have been incredibly respectful and have helped and have asked good questions and had good conversations with me, even when they didn't agree. So it's been a really, really fascinating process for me to hear from people in that way. I don't think there's ever been a candidate for governor in the history of Pennsylvania that gave out his personal cell number to every Pennsylvanian.
But you know what else it says? And it goes toward this building of respect again. You treat people with respect, you're going to get it back. And we've not had that in a while. We need to get it back here in the state of Pennsylvania. Charlie, I wish you the very best on May 17th.
Thank you, Gary. Please tell your friends, neighbors, and everybody you know to get to the polls on May 17th. And before you get there, to tell folks about myself, CharlieFordGovernor.com, if they want to learn more.
And when you see this video, what really matters, pass it on to your friends. Make sure they see it. This is a conversation. This isn't a 1 minute, 30-second kind of hit. It's a time we're really talking about the things that really matter to you. Here's someone that's not afraid to do that. He's Charlie Giroux. He's running for governor. Until next time, I'm Gary Sutton.
Businessman, conservative, patriot, Charlie Giroux for governor.